Celia, and I'm the Vice President of Business Operations for Applied Physics Technologies. We're located in McMinnville, Oregon. We started working with the SBDC about 3 years ago. We were actually at a time where the economic situation had started hitting us pretty hard, and our business was mainly comprised of very strong scientists who were focused in that area and not necessarily business areas such as HR, financials, and things like that. We started working with Scott, and I remember we had a strategic planning session scheduled, and he took one look at our financials and said, "We're not going to do any strategic planning today because it's definitely not the time." And with that, we moved into the fall with SBM, and kind of our first thing that we started doing was looking at our financials. Basically, we were not sustainable with our expenses and with our payroll and with the amount of gross sales that we were bringing in. We were basically looking at 3 to 6 months down the road we would be closing our doors. So we did a financial assessment. We started running things by the numbers for the first time it had ever been done, and we ended up doing some layoffs and cutbacks, and really came up with a plan for budgets and reorganized our complete company structure. We tried to put managers where their strengths lie and where they could use those strengths every single day. I would say my greatest gain from SBM was our employee handbook. We had an employee handbook that was probably written in 2003 or 2005 and was probably at most 5 pages with a 2-page introduction, and Bill and I, the president of ABTech, worked on the employee handbook for about 6 months out of the year and came away with a 40-plus page document that comprised all of the BOLI and all the standards, all the laws, labor and hour, all the information that our employees needed to know. Our basic handbook before didn't go into detail, the expectations weren't clear, and things weren't black and white. You could read them from 2 different perspectives. And so we were able to finally hand our employees a document that said, if you have any questions, here's all the information. And it was great. It was wonderful to have that in my hands. I basically call it my Bible, because if any employees have any questions, they can go straight there. Another accomplishment was learning how to hire. Bill and I really had a great question on, when we are at that point financially, when do we know that it's time to hire another employee, and how do we go about hiring the right employee? And so Lori really helped us with the process. We didn't have a process, we weren't doing background checks, so she helped us with the different styles of interviews and different questions, like behavioral questions that we hadn't been asking, and we'd really struggled with how do you get to know someone to potentially offer them a position in your company after only knowing them or speaking with them for about an hour. Another gain that we got out of SBM was our disciplinary process. So we had employees that didn't know what manager they were reporting to, and there was absolutely no documentation when it came to employee warnings, verbal warnings, or written warnings. So working with Lori, we came up with some forms and adapted them to work for ABTech, and basically every employee now knows which manager they report to, and when something happens, they know the consequences. So what happens on the first offense, second offense, third offense, and it is documented with an action plan and a timeline associated with it. And the employee, in addition to the manager and sometimes another management team member, will sign off, and it goes in the employee file. And this has already been of great use to us. We had to let an employee go in June, and she appealed the court case twice, and without lawyers, we were able to win the court case just based on the documentation I had from the forms Lori had supplied us with. So that was an extremely beneficial aspect to bring out of SBM. And I have to thank Lori and Scott and everyone at the SBDC, because I think without that and their support and resources and the resources within the class, ABTech would have shut its doors and would not be around, and we would have lost about 20 jobs. So I would say to anyone that is considering taking this program or maybe has fears about this program, I would say it was the best decision that the president and myself made. I think my biggest only fear going into it was spending time away from my business, which turned out to be the most beneficial part. Taking a few hours from for class and taking a few hours for the one-on-one sessions gets you out of your business and gets you some time to focus on some of the things that you need to work on. And instead of employees coming in and interrupting you, or emails or emergency phone calls, you are out of the business in a completely new setting where you're specifically focused on your business and its needs. And I would say that it was just extremely beneficial and very worth the time and effort.